Hello everyone, my name is Holly and welcome back to the channel, and oh boy, do I have some awesome news to share with you. Medieval Knights are back. Publishing has clearly decided that we are in our knight era again, and I am living for it. You know how we've had waves of pirates, vampires, necromancers at one point? Well, now it's lady knights, and honestly, yes, give me all the quests, the armor, the codes of honor that the characters probably don't live up to, the messy emotions underneath the chainmail, because let's be honest, there's still a lot of romance happening, but I will take it whether they are fighting demons or fighting a lover's embrace. And what's really fun is that this new crop of knightly books isn't just carbon copies of Arthurian legend. Some are gothic, some are romantic, some are dark, and some are funny. It's like reading about Brienne of Tarth for a full book length of time. So today I thought I would put together a big shiny list of lady knight books that you need on your radar. Some are already out, some are brand new, and some are coming out very soon. We are going full shiny armor, but also making room for the slightly rustier ones. All right, let's draw our swords and get into it. Let's start Gothic. The Knight and the Moth. Like, you had to assume this was going to be on the list. A lady literally morphing into a knight on the cover. You probably know Rachel Gillig from One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, and she's back with The Knight and the Moth. This one released back in May and was a huge hit, and I kind of feel like it might have kickstarted this trend a little more forward than it already was. This book gives us knights, but draped in shadows. There's dark cathedrals, secrets, gothic fairy tale like at its finest. In fact, if you've played the video game Bloodborne, you might like this because that's the vibe it gave me. Oh, and also T. Kingfisher's Nettle and Bone for sure. We have our character Sybil, who has spent the past 9 years as a diviner, which means receiving terrifying visions from the omens that people travel across the kingdom to hear. As she and her sisters near the end of their decade-long service, her fellow diviners begin disappearing one by one, and Sybil has no choice but to ask for help from a rude but handsome knight. Now, the protagonist is bound up in duty, but also in something darker and more personal. It's moody, yes, it's romantic. It's one of those books where every page feels like steeped in atmosphere, and that's kind of what Rachel Gillig is known as, I should say, and also good at. So if you like knights, but with the edges sharpened, like less noble shining armor, but more like a tragic figure, this is where you should start. Now, I will say, I do think the magic system is a bit complex, but I think once you read further in, you get the hang of it, understand it better, and your enjoyment for it will only heighten from there. And from cursed Gothic orders, let's swing over to something a little more courtly. Ladies' Night. I mean, it's literally in the title. How can I not include this one? Now, Ladies' Night is straight up romantic fantasy, co-written by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, who you might know from their YA sci-fi romances, and here they are writing knights and ladies of the court, and it sounds delicious. I mean, it looks delicious. This cover isn't holding any secrets. This was released back in June, and it's definitely going in the opposite direction from The Knight and the Moth. Instead of gothic and brooding, we have a lighter, fun read. It's following a blacksmith's daughter who pretends to be a knight to enter a jousting tournament, that is a tournament for men only, and teams up with the lady who is meant to be the tournament prize. Though it does have that like goofy hijinks, a wink at the reader kind of humor, there is a serious side to it. With its like feminist undertones. Think of The Knight's Tale, but gender switched with the witty writing of Lady Jane. It's a solid story, very well written between these two well-known big authors, with good pacing and fun characters. It's perfect if you want a knight story that's less about clashing swords on the battlefield, which I know not everyone wants, and more about going to those like Renaissance fairs and dressing up while you're there and enjoying the festivities. Speaking of clashing swords, let's talk about a book where that's basically the whole point. The Second Death of Locke. This book has been making the rounds. Pretty much everyone is reading it, and for good reason. A while back when I was planning out this video, this was the first book I read because I was personally super pumped for it. It is a romantic fantasy, and the bond is between a knight and a mage, so it's very classic. The premise is two soldiers are escorting a prisoner across the kingdom, and that prisoner, he might be the lost heir to the throne of Locke. And if he is, then what they're doing could change everything. Now, this is a slower paced book. It's not going to be for everyone, but as I've said before in the past, I tend to enjoy slow paced books. The vibes are gritty, intense, and full of moral conflict. There's themes of duty, loyalty, sacrifice, betrayal. It's like Nightcore to the max. The tension between what you're sworn to do and what your heart wants. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. So if you want a knightly book, but darker, heavier, with that like no one's getting out of this clean energy, I guess, this is the one for you. Okay, let's step out of the grit and into something more mythical. The Everlasting. You know Alex E. Harrow always delivers a fairy tale feel, and The Everlasting is no exception. This is an upcoming book. It releases in October, and you're going to see it everywhere. Also, like just the perfect month for this book to release. Like October or November, if you read this book in any of those months, like, it's going to be a whole vibe. I do believe it's a standalone, which is great. This book asks the question, what does it mean to bind yourself to something bigger than yourself? What does it cost to swear an oath that you can't break? Those are very knightly questions, and Harrow answers them through a folkloric, almost dreamlike story. We have a historian traveling back through time to document the life of a lady knight, the first knight of the realm, savior and champion of the first queen. A book is mysteriously delivered, a book no one thought truly existed, which reads like a first-hand account of the life of Una Everlasting, who is badass, by the way. I know I mentioned Brienne of Tarth earlier, but like truly, Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones, if you didn't know. It's raw, it's intimate. I can't say too much without spoiling, but just know this isn't knights as soldiers, but it's knights as legends. It's lush, it's magical, and like every Harrow book, you're probably going to cry at least once. Okay, now let's take the idea of oaths and put it on an island in the middle of the sea. The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. The queen of romantic, devastating fantasy is now giving us a knightly story set on an isolated island. It's an adult medieval fantasy with dual point of views and a bit of a weird magic system. Something new that I haven't seen from this author, and it does involve time. A knight was cursed to fall in love with a witch and then to kill her. They were born on an island that's powered by stories. From the moment of their death, the knight and the witch become trapped and they're forced to repeat their tale in different bodies across time. I know that sounds really weird, but it was interesting. So they're like love incarnates, basically. Murder happens and they work together to investigate. There are so many secrets beneath the surface, enemies who might also be lovers, and all of Suri's signature longing and impossible choices. It's like the show Lost meets star-crossed lovers. So if you liked the Jasmine Throne but wished for more knights, this is basically the upgrade you've been waiting for. Okay, so that one is devastating. Let's lighten it up with something that feels more like a fairy tale. The Princess Knight. I told you there were a lot of Lady Knight books coming out, so the title tells you everything. This is a book about a princess who says, actually, I'm not going to wait around for a knight to save me, because I am the knight. This is another October release. We have Scylla, who is being forced by her parents to marry a prince from another kingdom, but the plan falls apart, and she decides to follow him to his kingdom's military academy to prove herself worthy of his attention. Now, this one is very adventure heavy, with a classic like quest structure, which I tend to really like, but it also has like a modern feminist twist. She's claiming the armor, the sword, and the agency, and I love that for her. I could see the parallels to Legally Blonde all the way through, which I thoroughly enjoyed spotting. But make no mistake, The Princess Knight is very much its own book and fully explores medieval knights, battles, and even war. But like the movie, there is still like a sense of lightness, a cute pet side character, and a steamy romance too. But of course, when you talk about knights, you have to talk about Arthurian legends. The Bright Sword. So yes, we are going back in time to some older releases for these next couple. This is the big Arthurian one on the list. I, of course, had to throw it in. Lev Grossman, yes, the author of The Magicians, is retelling the story of Camelot here. But instead of focusing on Arthur, Lancelot, and all the famous knights, it's about the ones who came after. The book is split between like a post-apocalyptic present where the protagonist's column and what remains of the table struggle to hold the realm together, and flashbacks to the memories of these nights where we see the glory of Camelot. Sorry, that's like kind of confusing to explain, but I hope I made sense. But honestly, all of the familiar elements are there. We have the sword and the stone, Excalibur, Arthur's sisters, the fairy realm, the Grail, and other various quests and adventures. This is a sincere story with lovable, fully realized characters, and it's just a fun adventure. It's a really lovely book, and the protagonist is great, but it's definitely a different tone from The Magicians. Also, it's very long, reaching over 600 pages, so you've been warned. But you don't have to worry about the length of this next book because it's a novella. Brighter than scale, swifter than flame. Yang always gives us something that challenges expectations, and here they're mixing dragons with knights in a world where the old codes of honor just don't really work anymore. We follow Yeva, who slew her first dragon when she was 13 while protecting her sister. Soon after, she was sent to the capital city to become a guild knight, which is like an elite force dedicated to eradicating dragons, and the only way she feels safe is constantly wearing her armor, including her golden mask, which covers her whole face, and she kind of becomes a legend because of this. She is then whisked away to another kingdom on a mission where she meets the Girl King. This short novel feels very much like a fairy tale in that it's somehow both epic and self-contained in a fully realized world that's both familiar and magically strange. I loved Eva's growth and self-discovery, as well as the relationship that she builds. It's a great fantasy, perfect for someone who enjoyed Priory of the Orange Tree, but would like a shorter read. It's exactly what you'd expect if you want to see knights like deconstructed and rebuilt in new ways. But hey, not all knightly stories have to be heavy. Some can be funny, romantic, and cozy. Enter T. Kingfisher, Swordheart. Now, this one is technically about a magical sword, but come on, the man trapped inside the sword is basically a knight in spirit. And it's honestly a really funny story. So the book follows a widow who is trapped inside her room by her family until she agrees to marry a certain man. When she finds a sword, she unsheaths it in preparation to kill herself, only to have a handsome knight suddenly appear and swear loyalty to her, and who now has to travel with her. It's funny, it's sweet, and it's packed with banter and romance. Even as someone who doesn't like romance, I enjoy the heck out of this one. For most of the story, Hala and Sarkis travel together to call on an order of priests to help her receive her inheritance. But along the way, we find like some really great side characters and a lot of adventure. But the real jewel is how the journey allows time for us to get to know them and, surprise, surprise, see them fall in love. Given that Sarkis has his own backstory and his inability to not serve the sword bearer, things get pretty complicated and, again, really funny. So if you like knight tropes but want them turned inside out with humor and heart, Swordheart is perfect. And to close us out, let's go short, sharp, and dragon-filled. The Fireborn Blade. This is yet another novella, but do not underestimate it. It packs a punch. It follows a disgraced knight who has one last chance to redeem herself, so she sets off on a quest to retrieve a legendary sword from a dragon's hoard. Very classic setup, right? But the twist is in how it unravels. She acquires a squire named Petros and meets a woman named Saraline on her journey. Not only does Saraline possess magic forbidden to females, but sparks fly between them. It's entertaining and has a message of like girl power. I would recommend this for fans of like Mercedes Lackey and Tamara Pierce for sure. Would enjoy the story. Oh, and it's perfect if you want a night story but don't have time to commit to like a doorstopper. Alrighty everyone, that's 10 nightly books to put on your TBR. What I love about this little trend is how varied it is. We've got gothic nights, romantic nights, feminist nights, messy nights, even like night-coated swords. Basically, whatever flavor of night you like, there's a book here for you. Let me know down below which of these you're most excited to read, or if you've already picked one up. And of course, if you've got more night recs, because I know you do, drop them below in the comments so we can nightify everyone's TBR together. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss my next one. Now, if you don't mind me, I will be trading in the summer heat for a dark and damp stone castle atop a hill. So thanks so much for watching, and until we meet again, happy reading.